Welcome, everybody, to Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. My name is Dal Gurunga, and I'm here with Kishore Chandra and Acyuta Gopi, the three musketeers. And we're here for our live audience as well, tuning in on our Rise platform. If you are listening to this podcast and ever want to join us live on Zoom, please find us on our Rise platform. You can find it on our website, bhakticenter.org. It's free. And you can join us in on live, or you can keep tuning in wherever you're tuning in from. But we're really glad you're here either way. How are you doing, Kishore and Acyuta?
I just got back from Puerto Rico along with you, Dayal. So my heart is in Puerto Rico, but my body is in the
He's dead.
tundra of New York.
Yeah, I got back. I was like dead. I was working like 70 hours a day in the kitchen. Jagannath Mishra was there. A few people were there. We were cooking. We were leading this facility in the street, but I was cooking. And yeah, and we were just 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner for like 30 people for 7 days straight. And it's one of those things where you're going and you don't realize how tired you are when you're doing it. But then when you stop, it's just kind of like, my body's like, why did you do that to me? But it was so sweet, actually, because you were so enlivened being there. And so many of the participants, Jagannath Mishra was there with his whole family, Sachi Devi and his son Chaitanya Pandit. Ashley was there helping out, a lot of other people. And it was so sweet. And these people, there was like 20 plus people that came to this retreat, and they all paid to go on this retreat. Like, they paid money, they bought flight tickets, they paid for the retreat. The retreat includes all of your meals, your accommodation, all the classes, everything every day. And the owner of the retreat center, his name is John, he was there. And he was like, I've never had a guest stay, like a group of people stay for a retreat, and the participants are helping out with the service in the kitchen. He was like, how do I get other retreat participants to do that? And I was like, they're crazy. Makes no material sense. Suzanne is just joining in right now in our live audience. She was there as well. So anyways, we spent the day yesterday recovering and in the 12-degree weather. But we're going to India on Friday, so we won't be cold for too long. Well, you have to dress up in your tundra clothes again, and we'll have our tank tops next week.
I know. Now you're back doing this collective tapasya that that
For
some
a
of us
couple
do.
days. Yeah. And how are you this morning, Acyuta?
I'm okay. I think that yeah, you guys came back at such an interesting time. I feel like the weather is doing things, the planets are doing things, everything is doing something. But I feel like that's like symptom of the material world, but kind of in a good way. So it still
Yeah,
works. It's fine.
yeah.
We good. We're here.
We're, we're here. We just got to keep coming together. Somebody sent me a video this morning of something that I was going to reference, but I'm usually always like a rocket shooting off and directing where we should go. But before I just launch us in a particular direction, I wanted to check in with you guys. Is there something that you wanted to do, or something on your mind that you're like, oh, I'm hoping to share before Doyle just shoots off his mouth and dominates where we go in this conversation?
I think it's good if you dominate where we go. Like I don't usually have a problem with it, and I think it normally winds
Your
up like all
dominating
fitting
nature
together.
usually
It's
doesn't
fine.
bother me very much,
Ah ah.
so it's cool.
No, actually, I mean, I think one of the only questions that I was gonna ask like both of you is, okay, so great retreat, awesome thing. Like what was a challenging aspect for you?
Hmm. I'm gonna volley that over to Kishore.
See, everybody listening couldn't see Kishore's face.
Um, I mean, there was definitely a lot more that was really inspiring and really wonderful and really beautiful than challenging things. And so I can think of maybe like a few challenging things, and I'll say it in a moment, but I'll start with the positive. Because I think in many ways, doing that kind of retreat, Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi were there, Susanna was there, in the current times was kind of like materially made no sense. It was materially kind of crazy, that it all kind of came together. And even before the retreat happened, with the rising Omicron cases and etc., we were having a moment where it was just like, is this even going to happen? Like, are we going to have to cancel this? And what was spoken about during the retreat, kind of like the thread that linked the retreat together, what was being taught, was something that we've been talking about. I think we spoke about it our first week together, which was surrender, and specifically these 6 aspects of surrender. And so Janavi and Jai Jagannath, they were kind of going through the 6 aspects of surrender and explaining it to the participants and really getting into it. And I think one thing that is challenging for me, that was challenging just, I was the organizer of the retreat. So just in all the details, all the bookings, all the emails, all that kind of stuff. And what was really challenging for me was this aspect of surrender about really, really believing in Krishna and the Lord's maintenance and protection. And that is something that I feel like it sounds really, really beautiful. It's like, yes, I believe that Krishna protects me and I believe that, he's going to maintain me and everything's going to be fine. But on a day-to-day basis, we spoke about this on our first week, how surrender is really like a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, moment-to-moment, second-to-second thing, like really trusting and believing that Krishna is maintaining me and protecting me. You know, there were, because the mind is so, the mind can be, Bhagavad Gita, the mind can be the best of friends when under control, and when not under control of the self, it can become the worst of enemies. So really, I would notice my own mind like starting to go into those enemy, across enemy lines, where it's just like, is everything going to be okay? Is everything okay? Like, are we just going to, like every time I would sit in the car, I would just, because Doyal and I were also the drivers of the retreats. I was just like, everything's going to be okay. Just praying to Narasimha for protection and just really reminding myself like that everything is going to be okay. That was really challenging for me, because not only on my own internal, mind, but also when you do a retreat or when you do any type of service that involves a lot of people, you really, as facilitators, as leaders in the retreat, you really have to be like resolute in a sense, like we're going to go for it. We're just going to keep on going forward no matter what happens. And I think that, I'll volley this back to Dayal, because I think he's such an example of just being like, we're here. Every day after the retreat would finish, he'd be like, we did it. We're doing it. We did it. And he's always saying this. And I'm just like, yeah, this is correct. We did it and we're doing it and we're going to continue doing it. And so I'll volley back to him, because I really look to him for inspiration on that. Just like, we're going to keep on going, we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep on believing that Krishna is protecting us and maintaining us.
Yeah, I love that you reference that also. I think that the greatest challenge really is always the mind. It's always the mind, as you reference in Bhagavad Gita, the mind can be the best friend and the worst of enemies. Or there's also in I believe it's the 5th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, where it talks about the mind, like you can just never trust it. It's like, even when it seems like everything's going okay, you can't take your hand off the wheel for a moment. And the difference between a friend or an enemy, or the difference between a failure or a lesson, or the difference between a blessing or a curse, and a lot of times is just the perception of the mind, or even pleasure and pain. They say sometimes, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. This idea of how we perceive things in the mind, or even the foods we think are tasty or not tasty. It's like so much of it has to do in the mind. And so I think that for me also, it really, the trip is a huge blessing. I was just super, super grateful to be there, uplifted by everybody that was there. People were coming in and serving and helping in tremendous ways. But I do think that the biggest thing is always the mind and the stories we kind of create. For me personally, I was in the kitchen and I was serving and working a lot, and you don't realize, but it was like 12, 14-hour days. Like we'd get in there like 7 a.m, and you plan it all out. Okay, this meal's going to take 2 hours. I'm going to take a break, but it never breaks. It's just continuous throughout. Like 7 in the morning, you put up breakfast. As soon as you're done with breakfast, you're making lunch, and as soon as you're making lunch, and then it was you're done with one meal, you're prepping for the next day's meal. Like always trying to get like ahead of the game, and everyone else is, some people are laying out by the pool. Some people, you hear the mridanga, boom, 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 Hare Krishna. And people are in the back, the kirtans are going on, and, people are serving meals. And it's very, very easy. For me, I noticed like the experience in one sense is set. Like this is what the physical experience is. I have an opportunity to choose how I'm going to relate to this experience. And the mind can, and also to take responsibility, like ownership, Jai Jagannath, who was on the retreat with us, was making, we were doing our closing circle, and everything he says is a joke or is funny. There's some humor to it in some way or shape or form. And he was talking about, because there was 2 days we took day trips out. We took one day trip out to Long Beach. Another day we went to like Old San Juan, this old town, and we went for the day. We packed breakfast and lunch, and then when we got back, we had dinner. And so everyone else, when they got back, Jai Jagannath's like, everyone else was like, went and laid out in the room, stretched their leg, took a shower, and like Dial and Rasika like went straight into the kitchen. And he was like, they were like, I was like getting anxiety for you guys. Like, how are you guys going to do it all? But then he was like, I didn't sign up for that. Like, they're doing that, And I'm realizing, like, in one sense, it's true. I signed up for that. You know what I mean? And it was a challenge for me to recognize my own boundaries and to like if I'm getting resentful, or if I'm getting like I'm doing more than I should be or something like that, like I have a responsibility to put my hand up and say, hey, this is uncomfortable for me, or this is something more than I bargained for, or I need this or that or the other, rather than allow my mind to make up stories about what I deserve or don't deserve, or what other people should be doing, or other people are caring or not caring, etc. Like, it's all going on in my mind. And I was like, I want to have a powerful, blissful experience. I want to see the best in other people. And I realized that actually, like, the whole trip for me, it was so beautiful. Sachi and Jagannath Mishra retreat was truly mystical, awesome organization, highly recommended, total nectar. We didn't tell him to say that in the chat, but he's making a plug. But I recognized, like, I just felt tremendously grateful and blessed to be there in that environment. And I just noticed that for me, the biggest challenge in any situation is always my mind. And paying attention to the vibrations that I'm frequencing at, because they snowball each other. A negative thought leads to another negative thought, leads to a negative thought, leads to a negative mood, leads to a negative attitude, leads to a negative energy, leads to a negative place in life. And a positive thought, so it's just kind of like that moment to moment choice of the mind, and also keeping myself in positive energy. Because it wasn't just the cooking. We were cooking, and then we were doing the podcast, and then I was sending emails, and then it was, all these other things, and going to kirtan. And so I thought the trip was really beautiful. And I think that the biggest challenge is always, in any situation, it's always my mind.
I think it's so interesting that everybody, kind of says that. I'd been referencing just yesterday, Shri Krishna saying everybody is struggling with the six senses, which include the mind.
Yeah.
Everybody. Like, and he left no exception. So I don't care if you're Brahma, I don't care if you're Indra, I don't care if you're like, everybody is struggling with the six senses, which include the mind. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because just I feel like it's something that we talk about so much less. Like, it's like, oh, everything went great and it all turned out in the end and everything was fine. And then nobody talks about, it's like, but did you ever feel like, did I sign up for this? Did you ever feel like what are the rough things? And so like I was kind of up this morning. It was a weird like time warp. I feel like every like the past 2 days have been like weird time warps where I'm like, it's sunset and it's like 1 p.m. I'm like, it's not sunset. But so I found myself kind of like scrolling through like Instagram, and I saw one really quick thing that started to make my mind churn. And it was just something about like somebody was saying something like, oh, kirtan has to just always go on, like no more fear. And I was just kind of thinking, I was like,
I saw that post.
Quite honestly, there's fear. I'm gonna put it right out there. I'm gonna be completely honest and transparent. I'm still a person who's afraid for my family, my life, the people that I love, all the things. And there have been points in life struggled with depression and anxiety and all those things. And you have those thoughts where you're like, you know what? I could tap out and say, you know what, I'm done. But I actually still fear for the people that I love. There is still fear.
Yeah.
So whether your mind says, you know what, I'm gonna just plow forward and I'm gonna depend on Krishna's grace and maintenance to get me through, or whether your mind says, maybe this is how we depend on Krishna's grace, and this is how we get through, is to stay put. I kind of want to put it out that no mindset is wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a wrong mindset
Yeah.
to still be afraid for yourself or people around you.
I love that so much because I think the idea of no fear, and fear is such a pivotal spiritual concept. I mean, even like our, spiritual grandfather, Srila Prabhupada, his name was Abhay Charan. Abhay means no fear, you know. And the spiritual world is known as Vaikunta, the place without anxiety, which means the material world is filled with anxiety. So there's anxiety, there's fear. So like the difference between material and spiritual, so much is categorized by the presence or absence of fear or anxiety. And I think that when we sometimes think of like and at the same time, the number one most repeated command, I think I shared this before, and the number one most repeated command in the Bible is do not fear, fear not, be not. I grew up in Catholic church, be not afraid, these songs we would sing. And it's the final instruction of Krishna to Arjuna, Masuchaha, do not worry, don't be afraid. So this idea, but what's so interesting, I think the idea of fear not or don't be afraid. It's not that necessarily what you're so afraid of won't happen, because anything could happen. I don't think it's that X, Y, and Z won't happen, but it's that even if X, Y, and Z happens, you will be protected or carried through it. And I think that for me also, like entering into a retreat like this, like part of me was just like, we were going to a place we'd never been before. We don't know where we're going to do the grocery shopping. You don't know what the kitchen's going to look like, and all these things. And it's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that whatever does happen, we're going to deal with it however best we can. Like all we can do is show up with what we have and deal with what's been given to us as best as we possibly can. I can't guarantee that I'm going to win or kick it out of the park or do this or that, or even on a retreat. We can't guarantee that everything's going to, like, we're going to India on Friday. We're taking 10 people with us. And we just got back. Like I just literally recovered. I got stung by a bee when I was in Puerto Rico on Friday. And in the air, and literally when I was on the flight, my foot blew up like a balloon. Like I couldn't fit my foot in my shoe last night when I took my dog out for a walk, and it was like itching. Jagannath Mishra gave me some itch cream. And like I was literally just like my foot was like I couldn't move my foot, and I was like, is this going to heal before I go to India? And like, is my immune down? Am I going to get COVID now? Is this a COVID? Is this what COVID looks like in your foot? And so it was just like, we're going, so we have no idea what's going to happen. And part of me is like, I'm not necessarily, anything could happen. People could get sick, but for a lot of the Omicron cases, people are experiencing cold symptoms, or it's a really bad flu and they feel okay. But like if somebody gets COVID when we're in India, they're going to have to quarantine, and they're going to have to, delay their trip, maybe not come home on time. There's so many variables. And so for me, when I think about faith in the trip or in anything, or in Puerto Rico, wherever it is, or coming back, I try to remind myself that faith isn't that like everything's going to go the way that I thought it would, but it's that whatever happens, right or wrong, will be equipped to deal with it. And I think that's Krishna's promise in the Gita. It's not like everything's going to be okay, because we see that even in the most exalted devotees throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and throughout scriptures and throughout, I mean, even in the Bible, you look at the book, you look at the story of Job, it's like the example they've given of like just tremendous setbacks and suffering, or the prayers of Queen Kunti, or Prahlad Maharaj, or Haridas Thakur, and like all of these, tremendous things. You find that people go through tremendous difficulties. The promise of God, the promise of divinity is not that I won't let anything bad ever happen to you, but it's that you're in the material world. I was thinking of this yesterday also. Dukhalayam Ashashvatam is in the Bhagavad Gita, I believe. It's like this place is this material world is a place of misery, and so just like it's the climate. Like we were in Puerto Rico, it was sunny, it was beautiful. It's just the climate, and we're in New York City. It's cold, it's dark at 1 p.m. It's just sort of the climate. Like you can't say, why is it snowing in Antarctica? Why is it sunny in the Bahamas? Why is it suffering in the material world? It's just the nature of the climate that we're in being associated with these material bodies. But the promise isn't that you won't come in contact with any material suffering or any setbacks or any reversals, because you find that even in the greatest of spiritualists, in Mother Teresa, in the life of Jesus himself, and Srila Prabhupada, and St. Peter, one of Jesus' leading disciples, was historically reported he was crucified upside down. for his faith. You know, like you find these tremendous things. And here I am, I'm getting a bee sting in Puerto Rico thinking, why does God not love me? You know, I'm serving so much. I got a bee sting in the kitchen while I was cooking. You know, while I was serving the Lord, I got a bee sting. You know, God obviously doesn't love me. You know, but it's like I will actually like carry you through that, um, and be there. And so, like when we're on this trip or going on this trip, that the real faith is that whatever comes our way, we will have the spiritual tools to approach it. And that's why I said every day through, we did it. We're doing it. Like we made it. We did it through today. And so I think that that's just sort of the faith that we carry as devotees, moving into not thinking too far into the future, not letting the mind get away for us and go into all of those turbo scenarios, as our friends of Wisdom of the Sages mentioned it, like turbo scenarios in the brain, where I'm just kind of like filling in all the gaps with my mind, but just showing up and recognizing that like I'm not alone and I can handle whatever comes my way spiritually. So I love that definition of faith, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Achuta. And that's my rant for the day. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Join us tomorrow. We'll be back.
No, yeah. I mean, you know, just so that everybody's clear, I do think of you guys as my responsible friends. It's not like I'm like it's like irresponsible. No, you guys are my responsible friends.
Achuta's like, I'm worried about you guys.
No.
Please
It's not, you know, like
stop
I
what you're
always
doing. It's giving me anxiety.
This is actually an intervention for both of us, Doyle.
It's an intervention.
at any moment, any of these
I
podcasts.
can't. I've called Air India. Your flights are canceled. We're gonna meet you at the airport. Stop it. Just please stop it.
No, not at all. Yeah, and but I just kind of like, I was like, let me like, you know, in this place where we have Spirit Matters, and I feel like it's super important to like be real with one another, especially if we're growing a platform where we can all kind of just be real with one another. And I feel like as devotees, we do think about like, it's like, okay, well, we're gonna, and I was on like a bus tour once where the like the mindset was heavily like that, but sometimes less responsible than I'd like. But luckily I went on the tour when I was like 22, 23, something like that. So like, you know, there was a mindset of like, let's just think about the next moment. And I'm like, well, maybe not only just maybe one step after that, you know, like, and
Maybe the
so
next 2 moments.
yeah, maybe the next like two moments. But I do remember a lot of like my friends and people talking about it, and like, and not, this is just like you said, it's the climate of the material world, right? So if it's not one thing, if it's not a huge like pandemic or something to talk about, there's always another consideration where people are like, oh well, this versus that, or that, you know, like. So I remember what would come up a lot was this example of like Vasudev speaking to Kamsa. So Vasudev is the father of the bio dad of Sri Krishna, speaking to Kamsa, who's like the uncle, and he's about to kill Devaki, and Vasudev says this line. He's like, oh, but Kamsa, because he, you know, he hears there's going to be an eighth kid, it's going to kill you. Kamsa gets very upset. He's like, well, let me take destiny into my own hands. And Vasudev is like, but why should you be so afraid of dying? Like, from the moment you were born, you began to die. And then everybody stops quoting, right? They're like, from the moment you were born, you began dying. Why should you be so afraid of death? And I'm like, let's also take into account that he was saying this to protect the life of his wife. Like, he was saying this to get him to stop trying to kill her. He was trying to keep everybody alive. Not saying like, woohoo, go throw yourself in the middle of traffic. Like he's trying to keep everybody alive in this one situation. So he's saying whatever philosophy he can get to try and touch and get into Kamsa so that he'll stop this atrocious act. So I do think that whether I think that in either way, in whatever way you're trying to maintain your life, whether it's by saying that, but you know what, I need this retreat, I need this, and this is maintaining my life, because honestly that's what I believe. People go on retreats because this is maintaining their life in a way that I probably could never even imagine. Or whether you're saying, I'm going to find all the Zoom content I can because this is maintaining my life. I kind of just, I feel like I want to open up that definition of what is right, to like something so much broader than what we think in just one moment, because it's like looking at something and saying 2 plus 2 is 4, and that's correct. And then somebody learning that 3 plus 1 is also 4, and that can
Mm.
also be correct. And us not saying, but no, the 3 plus 1ers are totally wrong.
Mm.
And it's like, but it actually does also equal 4. So I just want to, even for myself, I want to just like expand that mindset of what is maintaining somebody's life for them, and what could be right for that person.
Mm. It's beautiful. What's on your mind, Kishore?
Well, I was just gonna say while Acyuta was speaking, and I heard this when she first spoke, and thank you for bringing up this topic and for keeping it real, because it something that really peeves me personally is yeah, just this mood of no, it's 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 1 is not 4,
That's
only
it.
2 plus 2 is 4, right? And it's just I love this definition that you gave, Achuta, that it's like this is what is maintaining me, my life, my body, my soul, right? And I think it really behooves us then as spiritual practitioners to try our best to understand the other person from where they're coming from. Because the moment that we start to say, no, actually what I'm doing is right, then the mind just goes off into that roller coaster of, and therefore you are wrong, right? Because once it goes off into that, and therefore you are wrong, we're just going into the really ugly terrain of judgment, of criticism, of making fun of people. And it's like no one is saved from that, actually. I think sometimes
Mhm.
people think like, I'm a devotee, I'm this, I'm spiritual, etc. But it's like no one is saved from when the mind goes out of control and behaving in an undignified way where we're gossiping or criticizing or making fun of other people. And that's actually really, it's offensive. It's an offense, And I think that that's something that's really like, oof, it's intense because, when you really start to just take a look back, like for example, we went on this retreat. Loads of people could criticize, "Oh, why are they taking this group of people? Why is this? Why is that? Why?" So much criticism can come. And we could also criticize, "Oh, but you're all afraid in this, no fear. Keep everything going, no fear." And it's just kind of this like constant back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm trying to get to here is, Dayal brought this up about where is it? Oh yes, it's the nature of the climate of the material world, right? It's the nature of the climate of the material world. And it's like there's one thing that we can agree on actually as devotees, as spiritual practitioners, and that's, I should wake up and chant my rounds. I should wake up and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, and here I should wake up and do my devotional service. And I think that that's something that needs to be focused on more, because I think the more that we, what's the word, kind of micro inspect like different people's lives, and it's the problem is that I think that it's so available, it's so easy to do that, like we go on a scroll binge, and it's just like, look at them, they're doing this, look at them, they're doing that, and then we start to compare it to ourselves. Oh, I'm not doing, or I am doing, or this, or etc. And it gets so heady, just a verse that was brought up to my mind. I love this verse. I quote it often. I should probably memorize it, but I haven't yet.
Get it tattooed on your chest.
I will. I actually got a tattoo
Kishore
while
got
I
a
was on the.
tattoo. Kishore got a tattoo
I
in Puerto
saw
Rico.
that.
I was like, "Were you planning on that?" He's like, "No."
It was so cool though.
He got it in his room. I was cooking breakfast and lunch, and then he came in the kitchen. He was like, I was like, he's like, "I got a tattoo this morning." I was like, "When did you have time to get a tattoo?"
The
I just
the
made
bee was
60. I
trying to
just made
help
60
you.
samosas.
The bee was trying to help you. The bee was like, "Look, dude, I'll tattoo your
I'll
foot
tattoo
for
your
free."
foot with my butt.
Okay? That bee gave its life for that, okay?
Krishna was trying to tell
Oh,
me. Anyways, it's a really beautiful tattoo. He got it
I know,
from
I liked it a
he
lot.
got it from one of the participants on the retreat
I thought that was so cool.
who brought her tattoo gun.
portable tattoo gun. It was amazing. Yeah. But let's see. Oh yeah, this verse. That's where I was. I'll just share this, and then I'll stop my rant for the day. But I really like this verse. I talk about it a lot. And this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 4, verse 31. says, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, who possesses unlimited transcendental qualities. Acting from within the cores of the hearts of all philosophers who propagate various views, he causes them to forget their own souls, while sometimes agreeing and sometimes disagreeing among themselves.
Yeah.
Thus, he creates within this material world a situation in which they are unable to come to a conclusion. I offer my obeisances unto him. And I really love this verse because it shows us that like Krishna's all pervading and Krishna's in everything and everywhere. And if we want to go into that platform of agreeing and disagreeing and no, this is right and no, that is right and no fear, whatever, like Krishna's going to manifest in that way. And he's going to make the perfect situation for us where we can just be in that space. No, you're wrong. No, I'm wrong. No, this, no, that, no, etc. And Krishna's going to manifest in that way. However, that's where we're going to be, and we're not going to be able to move into an actual space of understanding this beautiful, beautiful definition of faith that Doyal gave, that it's like, no matter what situation I'm in materially, because I'm bound by my material situation, and we're all in different material situations. So this beautiful definition of faith, no matter what my karma is, what I've been brought into in this world, my faith is that whatever comes my way, I'm equipped to handle that. Not that everything's going to go my way, and therefore, because it's gone my way, this is the right way. I feel like a lot of the mind, process goes that way. Oh, everything went my way. This is the right way, and therefore you should do it too. Rather that it's like, I'm equipped in my situation, you're equipped in your situation. We're both doing the best that we can. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. And I totally I do agree, and I think that that's kind of where that dichotomy, that separation begins to happen, when it goes beyond, okay, I can see and understand how that is working for that person's life. But then when it gets on to it's like, but you should too. You should be, because what happens is we start either defending our choices, right? Because then we feel weird doing the thing alone, or we start like, oh, but everybody should be either doing what I'm doing, or you should get on the bandwagon with that thing. Or and I feel like it comes up a lot spiritually too, like there's spiritual practices and a pathway toward approaching this spirituality, and it gets into a point, it's like, well, you should be approaching it this way because this has worked for me, and that's my 2 + 2 is 4. And you're like, but if I approach it this way and this is my 3 + 1 is 4, and it's like, no, there is only one approach. And I'm like, but there's also time, place, circumstance, geography, background, culture. Everybody's coming to it with lifetimes of context for them, right? And lifetimes of karmic context that they have. And I'm just trying to get a view for the fact that if Shastra, if scriptures have shown us anything, there are millions of devotees, and no two devotees have approached their spiritual path in the same way. No two.
Criticizing your choices makes me feel better about mine.
Right.
2.5 plus 1.5 is also 4.
See what I'm saying?
Fractions. There's so many
And
unlimited combinations.
I hate decimals and fractions, but look at how many combinations there are of 4. And Radhanath Maharaj gave this example once in like a class from the 90s. I really love listening to Radhanath Maharaj from the 90s because he was a different Radhanath Swami. Okay, y'all got the grandfather version. Like you ever hear like the parents and then the grandparents, and the grandparents are really nice to the kids. The Radhanath Swami from the 90s was so different. I've heard him say some things in some lectures, and I'm like, who are you? This is the same Swami that I know. Like, what's happening? But he was saying that, he was saying, you start to think that your version of 4, if you don't have a complete understanding of how vast 4 is, you're stuck on this one train of thought where just your 4 is correct. And it just kind of broadened my whole horizon of understanding, and understanding other people in a really compassionate way, with an aim to like serve.
Love it. It's beautiful. I feel like we can keep going, but we are fresh out of time, a little overtime actually. Let's get some that was beautiful. Thank you. Let's get some. Kimberly, you got some takeaways for us, or any takeaways anybody put in the chat? What are we walking away with today?
All right. I wrote a little summary for today.
Ooh.
So the nature of the material world is that there's going to be misery sometimes, Though whatever comes our way, we are equipped with the spiritual resources to address it. And at every moment, we have the opportunity to choose how we can relate to our experience, especially being aware of our thought patterns and the energy we put out.
Love it. We're always spiritually equipped. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Final words, Kishore, Acyuta. We feel good. They're feeling good. David Flesher, question myself, is my train of thought correct? And what does that even mean? Great question. We'll get into that tomorrow.
Yeah, I was just
Join
gonna
us.
say that I think this is a topic that we can really like churn a little
Mm.
bit. I'm excited. I'm sure Chuta has a lot more to say. I have a lot more to say. So I think we can keep it going tomorrow.
All right, I'm gonna put that question in the parking lot, and we're gonna get to that tomorrow. Thank you for asking that question. Please keep the conversation going on our Rise platform. We have a little thread there if you guys want to share lessons, takeaways, questions, realizations. If you're listening on any podcast streaming platforms, please rate and review us. We love to hear from you guys. It helps us share to more and more people. So, so grateful to you guys. Thank you, Kishore. Thank you, Acyuta. Thank you to all of our listeners. Love you guys so, so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.